Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson and I'm the government and legal correspondent. Today we have a government office holder as our guest, and it is the mayor of Hudson, Rich O'Connor. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie.
And I have to say, start off by noting that for my audience and for you, that you're my fourth mayor of Hudson
that
I've interviewed during my tenure as correspondent in government for Western Wisconsin Journal and its predecessor, Power News. Goes back to Jack Bro days. Yeah. But anyway, so we were meaning to have you on for a while, but those partisan elections kind of got in the way once we got rolling with those. It seemed like that was pretty wide scope of guests that we had on. So this is your second time on because last time you were a candidate.
A candidate,
and
yes.
So you won the election in April.
Right.
It's one of those things where, unlike the presidential, where he wins in November and it takes a couple months to take office, or even a judge that runs in April and doesn't take office till August, your first meeting is like 1st of May, right?
It's a couple weeks, yeah. I think it was 2 weeks after the election.
All right. So let's refresh everyone's recollection a little bit about your background, as far as where you came from and what you were doing before you got elected to be mayor of Hudson.
Well, I was born and raised on the east side of St. Paul, and my wife Cindy and Cindy was born and raised over there as well, and we moved here in 1999, brought our family over. We have 3 kids. Our oldest at the time was in college, and the other 2 started 3rd grade and 1st grade in the fall when we moved over here.
Okay.
And so we've been in town for some time now. I'm a financial advisor, certified financial planner. I have an office in town, AdvisorNet. We're over on Maxwell, right across from Wisconsin Credit Union.
All right, very good. So still a Gopher fan, or are you moving over to the Badgers?
You know, my loyalties lie with, I'm a loyal person. I'm loyal to where I'm at. I'm loyal to where I was. But first and foremost, I'm a Notre Dame grad.
Okay, there you go.
So I'm very loyal to the Fighting Irish, but I still remain a fan of the Gophers and a fan of the Badgers as my newly adopted team.
All right, well, got the important stuff out of the way.
Right.
Actually, now, you know, when office holders are candidates, they kind of set their goals and agendas. They get elected and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in May when you take office, and then now we're entering your 8th month as mayor of Hudson. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you went in with an agenda before you were mayor, and is it still your agenda or have things slightly changed?
Okay. When I ran, there were 3 things that I had that were important to me, 3 at the top of the list. The first was the dog track. I wanted to do something with that, still want to do something with that, to make it a very productive piece of property. It's the best piece of property that we have left in Hudson. And I wanted to make sure it stayed on the tax rolls and that we made it a revenue-producing piece of land. The second thing was we needed to take a look at the parking in downtown. Obviously, that's been an ongoing issue for some time, and we really needed to have a study to see what was going on there and if anything needed to be done and what that might be. And third, I wanted to develop, I wanted to focus on the riverfront. We're a river town, and too many river towns, including Hudson, unfortunately, have really turned their back on the river. And it's next to the people we have in our city here, that's the greatest resource that we've got, and I want to focus attention on that.
Okay, well, so let's talk about those. Parking. Sometimes Hudson can be, or any community can be, a victim of its own success, and we've had some outstanding establishments open up just recently, and as well as some of the long-standing established ones, and that has put pressure. It used to be just on the weekends. Now it's pretty much any night of the week.
Every night.
And so what are the developments there when it comes to parking? What progress have we made?
We had put together money set aside, worked with the Chamber of Commerce, and we both went 50-50 on a study for a parking analysis for the city. It started in the summertime, and it is actually being concluded this weekend. Is the last weekend that the surveys are being done. They wanted to get into the holiday season and as the final piece of the surveying that they were doing. We will have their report probably mid-January. As we speak this evening, they will have a preliminary report at City Hall with some of the findings that they've had, some of the questions and answers that they got as they were querying people downtown.
Okay, now is this a survey just for Hudson residents, or is it open to Hudson area, such as the town of Hudson and Village of North Hudson, et cetera?
The people that are being surveyed are actually the people that are parking downtown.
Okay.
So they're being questioned as they're parking or as they're walking around downtown. We have the people that are doing this.
So these are live interviews?
These are live interviews. Rich and Associates is a group that's doing it. And I've got to tell you, I was really impressed. They had a preliminary report probably a month and a half, 2 months ago over at the library that I sat in on. And it is a very comprehensive review and analysis. So this isn't just going to be about whether we need parking, how much parking we need. It's going to be about the entire analysis of where are people parking, what type of parking spaces we have available, peak parking issues and things like that. We're going to be looking at issues like, do we need to develop a parking strategy relative to our meters? We're finding that our meters are outdated, antiquated, and certainly not tech easy. They're supportive of technology, really, to any great degree.
Unless you got silver or copper, it's...
Pretty much. But there is a way that you can do that. There's an app that you can get to, but it's from in talking to people that I've talked to, they've said that it's cumbersome. I haven't tried it myself. I looked at it and said, I'll just put a quarter in, you know.
Right.
If you can, all right? And that's a big problem because I'd say 10%, minimum 10% of the meters at any given time are not functioning properly. And in talking...
It eats the quarter or the dime or
exactly,
whatever.
and doesn't register any time for people. So in talking with the people that are working the streets with the meters, they said that a good hour per shift is spent on trying to correct any problems that they have with the meters, as well as giving tickets and collecting money. So I would look for a conversation about, are we going to replace the meters? How will they be replaced? Is the cost of parking sufficient? And the length, the hours of parking, where you're going to be paying at the meter. I would guarantee, well, I wouldn't say that, but I would strongly suggest that we're going to be seeing that the time period for paying at the meter is going to be extended well into the evening.
Okay. So extend the hours, thereby getting a little bit more revenue and prevent those people from getting their spot and then kind of staying there a long time without paying for it.
Right.
And I've heard you speak on this subject before, and it's not always just a parking issue, it's a walking issue.
Yes, yes.
And explain that a little bit.
Well, we know that we've been in town for a while, right? Years, and we knew that pretty much any time we wanted to go downtown, we could park in front of wherever we wanted to go. If we wanted to go to the drugstore, we could park in front of the drugstore around the block. Same thing at Kanoki's, same with Barker's or any of the restaurants downtown. That's changed dramatically. So we've got to park farther away from our ultimate destination. If we put in, and by the way, Rich and Associates had also talked about this, and they said that they have encountered very similar situations with similar sized towns where people said we need to have additional parking, a parking ramp, another surface lot. So when you think about the options that we have for parking, it's going to be at the lot next to Wells Fargo at the north end of town. It's going to be the lot where most people, I think, probably try to use, would be right alongside the fire station. And we also own the lot by Pier 500. I can tell you this, there is no appetite at City Hall to put a parking facility by the river.
But you're not going to go 3 stories high next to Pier 500.
No, we're not doing that. So we're going to be focusing on the other two. So think about that. If you park at Wells Fargo and you want to eat at Barker's, you're walking. You park at Wells Fargo and you want to walk down to Seasons, you're really walking. Same thing is true if you park at the fire station. You park there and think of the different destinations that you might have in mind. You're going to be walking. And that's what we need to get in people's minds, the mindset that just because there's a parking structure doesn't mean that other people are going to use it so that you can continue to park out in front of the place that you want to go to, right?
Right.
And I think that's in people's minds. And what Rich and Associates have told us is that in those other towns similar to ours, they build a ramp and then find that the ramp is not utilized because people will still go around the block and try to find that spot a little bit closer. Okay, so if there is a recommendation for a ramp, if there is a ramp ultimately built, I would suggest that the parking on the street will likely be more expensive than the ramp to try to entice people to use the ramp.
Okay, makes sense. I think that what you're trying to do is have an influence on people's decisions, and because other than just you can't make a ramp right in front of every business, and
That's right.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to speaking of because parking is a subset of development, and
Right.
and so we've got two different areas of development. Let's take the dog track first, since you mentioned it first.
Okay.
And I know it's not like this is a new issue. It's been around for a while. So what can you say about where that's going?
I'm glad you asked. What can I say?
Yes.
We have worked that. This has been. Like I said, it was at the top of my agenda. I've spent much more time working on the dog track than on probably everything else combined. And we have had several conversations. When I say we, it would include Denny Darnold, especially with with the city, and in talking with people and trying to explain to them what it is that we're looking for, what we want there, and what we don't want there, frankly.
So it's not a matter of desperation where you're going to take anything that comes in with any idea, and people see that structure that's there, and they see the trees growing up in the parking lot and dilapidation that's happening there, and just assume nothing's happening.
Right.
How are they wrong?
Well, I can tell you this. We have a Christmas present for Hudson.
Okay.
And what do we know about Christmas presents?
You don't get to open them till Christmas.
That's
number one.
exactly right.
Okay.
You don't get to see it until Christmas.
Okay.
But I can tell you we have a very nice present for the city of
So it's kind of like a billboard that says, watch this spot. And folks need to be patient. And that's the thing is, a lot of good things happen when people are patient. And I think it's a matter of keeping that long-range view of what can be done for that property and what it can mean for the citizens of Hudson and the taxpayers.
That's exactly
sharing
right.
of the tax base. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that development then. And now moving along to the riverfront. I love it when people talk about the asset that our river is. And
Yes.
we are a river community. Not many people think in those terms, especially if they live up on the hill and aren't downtown a lot.
Right.
So what's going on there?
You know, I have viewed the river, I viewed Hudson rather, pretty much from the river for most of my life. I spent a lot of time on the St. Croix River as a kid, and would come into Hudson from the water. And Hudson, like almost all other river towns, turned their back to the river. And I hate to say this, but they were downright unfriendly to people coming in from the river.
Not a good first step.
No, but I mean, when you think about it, take a look at St. Paul, take a look at Minneapolis, take a look at pretty much any river town you can think of, and they all turned their back to the river, absolutely turned their back to it. The river was their front door. It was the only way to get into these cities, into these towns back then, was by the water. And then the railroads came in, and you had generally the railroad between the town and the river.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's where they put them. Right?
Yeah. Things would come in by barge and unload to trains, vice versa. And so all of a sudden, then the roads came in, and now you had a better access probably into town, and quicker perhaps, and the river was an afterthought. And so I think Hudson has done a lot. I think our riverfront is gorgeous. We have a beautiful park. The one town that everybody thinks about when they think about a river town, primarily, is Stillwater. Yeah. And they were very friendly to the river, and I don't think that they are as much anymore. And I think a big part of that has to do with the paddle wheelers that they brought in and took up all the public dock space. And it has created a big parking issue for people in Stillwater. And frankly, right now, with what we have with the bay, when the bay went no wake, And then at the same time, or nearly the same time, the price of gas on the river went to $5, $5.50 a gallon. All of a sudden, people didn't want to be moving around as much anymore. They wanted a destination. And to have a no-wake zone in that big bay was perfect for what people wanted in the water. So now, on any given Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, you see 100 boats anchored out there, 50 to 100 boats anchored out there in the bay. I want those people in town.
Right.
And so the first thing that we're talking about is I want to build a boardwalk. I call it a boardwalk, could be called a promenade, maybe a glorified dock.
Yeah.
But I want to build it, I would like to build one between the dike, starting at the dike and coming all the way down the wall to the...
Would this be like a floating structure?
Exactly.
Okay.
And bring it all the way down to the boat launch. And so right now we've had it measured off. It's approximately between 1,200 and 1,300
And
feet.
boat launch at Buckeye, right?
Yes, yeah, the city-owned boat launch.
Right.
And so it's about 1,300 feet.
Okay.
So you're talking about almost a quarter mile, you know, and that, you know, that's substantive. If we were to have that, and by the way, on that wall, when the water's at normal level, because of the rainwater runoff down there, it's kind of created a bit of a delta, and so the water at the wall is just maybe a foot to 2 feet deep. That's it. It's tough to get a boat in there. And, you know, you could go to the wall and you can tie along the wall, but you're way up here unless
Almost
the
any
water's
month
high.
other than April, right?
Yeah, or in this summer, August.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's right. It did go back up
Yeah.
again after the 4th of July. So.
And yeah, in August you probably could have parked your boat in the park, you know. But so yeah, these would rise and fall with the water. But now, not only does it bring people in from the water, but it's a great walkway for the residents, for the inhabitants here of Hudson. And it gets them down on the water instead of up on a wall. And I would like to see it like 10 to 12 feet wide. And once you go out about 6 feet, the depth of the water now is about 8 feet. It drops quickly. And so the boats are able to come in, and you've got a nice walkway down there, an extension, if you will, of the park that we have, and puts people right on the water. And I like that. And in talking to a lot of people, they like that idea too. In fact, coincidentally, this morning we had a group in SEH which does consulting work for us, engineering work, and they have a person on staff that talked with us, and he thought that it was a great idea. And we are now negotiating with them to perhaps, obviously this would have to be passed by the council, but to enter into a consulting agreement with them to take a look at the riverfront all the way from 94 up to the railroad tracks, okay? So, and I asked them specifically, what do you think of this boardwalk idea? Is this going to interfere with anything, any contract that you might have to do an analysis of the whole riverfront? He said, no, that would be perfect, start with that. He liked the idea. So, so we could develop the dike, find the ultimate uses for the dike to get our people out there. Obviously, I mean, you've been there, you know, you've walked it, maybe you run it and bike it. But a lot of people use it just to get a view of the river. It's a great walk. Maybe they use it to go down to the beach.
Well, then you have now the paved trail that goes north of the Phipps Center and goes along the river.
Right.
So that's another, kind of tie all that together would help bring people in. So bring them off the water. Great idea. Now, moving on, the Vine Street wrap-up. This is a project that started before you were mayor, but it was in full bloom at the time of the election. There wasn't any access to a lot of parts of Vine Street. Took several months, but how did that end up turning out, and how are we moving with regard to the rest of the 5-year capital improvement plan for Hudson?
The Vine Street project, I think, ended very well. I think everybody's very pleased with it. It went a little bit longer than we'd hoped, but we just got hit with that rain throughout the summer. In fact, there is still a piece of it that is not done, and that's some of the sewer line down along in the parking lot at the beach house.
That'll have to be done in 2017.
Right, and there were a couple starts and stops rather on that, where they actually dug, and all of a sudden the water came up, and So it did extend a little bit longer, and there is a little bit work to be done on that yet. But ultimately, the project, I think, was handled very well. I think they did a great job. The trees were a big issue. I can say this: 58 trees were taken down, 98 trees were put back up. And so we almost doubled the number of trees that we had there, 15 different varieties, so that we are somewhat insulated against any type of specific disease that might hit one strain.
Do you know, like, the history with Vine Street? Like, how long had it been since a major overhaul had been?
You know what? I don't know the answer. I know I just kept hearing it was a long time, and the piping and stuff that they were bringing up from down there was just, they said it was very antiquated, very old.
And in not good shape.
No, it was not in good shape.
So hopefully that's something that doesn't need to be repeated. But it's amazing when you don't have something how much you appreciate that arterial that we had be able to get up to the school without having to wind your way through the back streets.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a safety issue too. I mean,
right.
Now I think that there's been also comments about having that the bike lane there and not parking on one side, so that helps.
Yeah.
Too. All right. Well, what about the 5-year capital project?
So nothing really has changed in that. We haven't reviewed that recently. Of course, we're going to be doing money has now been set aside for the comprehensive plan, and we're going to be getting into that. But other projects that are going to be done, we're going to continue to work on Vine Street. So between 9th and Wisconsin,
okay,
or 12th and Wisconsin, is going to continue up.
Right.
And
Coincides with the schools project then.
Right.
Okay.
And
what can you say about that as far as, I mean, and I'm asking you just as the host of the show, not as president of the school board,
right.
but from what we've been told and what we've sensed is that good cooperation there and you know, between the city and the school as far as what you see as needs that will help safety issues and, you know, just moving, there's going to be a lot more parking spots there at the high school. So.
Right. Yeah, there and of course the different properties that have been bought. And all of that passes, I think the right-of-ways and easements and all of that, it's all worked very well through the council, and absolutely good participation and cooperation on the part of the council and the city with the school district.
I know it's an evolving project because even our board has a meeting on Monday. We're going to be informed on an update on the phasing. I know that originally it was thought to be a 3-year project. Perhaps that's going to be shorter, but you know, some changes maybe to Vine Street that the city has recommended, and I know that it's being recommended to the board. Let's get on board with this because there's going to be snow removal issues that we have to address and so forth, but trying to balance, you know, traffic and safety and all of that. So, well, good. Now, every year you have annual budgets that you have to do, and this is being recorded on December 8th and will be replayed for the next month, and over the next couple weeks folks are going to be getting their tax statements and so forth. Sometimes not happy times, but depends on your perspective and what your expectations are.
Right.
So what is the 2017 budget look like for the city? How is it going to impact the levy?
Okay, so the 2017 budget, we pretty much held the line, I think, pretty well. There are a couple things that are going on. EMS is a big issue, and we haven't talked about that, and we could maybe give a little background on that right now. But EMS is, we're in discussions right now with Hudson Hospital to hand off the EMS services to them. They, at a time when our partners, our municipal partners, North Hudson, Town of Hudson, a little bit of St. Joe, Troy, are looking at whether they can even afford to continue to be a partner on the EMS with us because they're at levy limits and some of these costs are going beyond their ability to continue to participate. Fortunately, at the same time, the hospital had come to us and said, we really want to do your EMS, similar to what they do in Stillwater. They've been doing it up there for 27 years through Lakeview Hospital. Okay. And so they want a similar program here. We think it's likely with the timetable that we're on, presuming it gets approved, and then we're going to be holding public hearings on that in the not too distant future, right after the first of the year. We took half of that budget out of or 5 months of that budget out of the 2017 budget, and we were able to bring down the overall increase a little bit.
So you're anticipating some kind of transition
Right.
mid-year?
July.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we will also then be getting some equipment costs back when we sell all the equipment. I know it's going to raise some questions about personnel and things like that that maybe you didn't want to get into, but this is probably an opportune time to talk about that. We're anticipating that most, maybe all of the staff will be going over to the hospital. And that's something that they have to discuss with each of the staff members, see what they think and how they feel about that. But so overall, we think it's a win-win for everybody, and it became part of our budget, just as an example of what we were doing for cost savings. Overall, we are going to increase the budget a little bit. Obviously, we have some valuation increases, and we didn't make any adjustments for those. That's going to mean some people will pay more based upon the value of their property. As far as the levy is concerned, we increased the levy 0.6%. So we are going to be at, I think it's 5.4%, I think is
So
what
that means for every $1,000 of value, it's going up 60 cents.
Pretty much. And so what's going to happen is on a $200,000 home, it's going to go up $6 on, that's it, $6 on a $200,000 home, $9 on a...
Would that be, well, if it's 6.6, is it 200,000 or 100,000?
No, the projections that I saw were based on the $200,000, $300,000 homes. So.
Okay, all right.
And I didn't bring my calculator with
All
me
right,
today,
but anyway, we're talking a small.
Yeah,
small
I mean, a $300,000 home, $9. You know, I really don't want to marginalize that, because I know that we do have people here in town that just are going to have a hard time with any type of increase, and I want people to know that I'm very, very much aware of that and very sensitive to their needs and concerns. And they're my concerns, and they're also the concerns of the city council, which is why we want to do a lot of this development. You know, we want to try to take as much of the tax burden off of our property owners, our homeowners here.
And try to get it to more commercial.
Exactly.
Develop the retail a little bit and the industrial park.
Right. I mean, when you think about it, when we get this Carmichael project done, the golf course, the housing project, we're pretty much out of land. You know, there's no more room. Somebody told me that they identified 12 lots in the city right now outside of that.
Okay.
And you know,
That's not counting some property that might be surrounded by city that's still in the township. But,
right, right, but that's still not ours.
Right.
So and obviously the corner of Carmichael and Vine comes to mind, but
Yeah.
you know, a good chunk of that would be commercial, and in order for anything to happen there, it would have to be annexed by us.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that would mean that, I mean, we're talking specifically about the property inside city proper right now, and if we were to grow it all for any type of residential, we would have to annex.
Well, and there's been different rumors over the last decade at different times involving different retail establishments, Target,
Right.
Walmart with a superstore, and then some other things like Best Buy and so forth. Is there anything in the works that can be talked about now?
I can tell you that I have not had any conversation with anybody about this. Direct conversation with any of the big stores. I don't think that Denny has had any direct conversation with them. We're only hearing the same thing that you're hearing. You know, the same thing.
So the land that's
there.
directly across the street from the old golf course and the current Target,
Right.
That remains outside of the city
That's
proper, but still on that extraterritorial zoning for the comprehensive plan moving forward.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And you know, we constantly hear rumors about, you know, one of the big stores coming in and taking, you know, picking up that land, and but nobody has ever yet talked to us about it. It's all rumor that I'm aware of.
Okay. And you know, we touched on the 5-year capital project plan, saying that there hasn't been any major changes yet to that, but that would be reviewed. And you mentioned the budget, but nothing in the near term for substantial borrowing or anything like that for projects.
No, we're again very cognizant about the ramifications of any type of borrowing. In fact, we just refinanced some of the debt that we had and got a great rate on it, and so reduced our overall debt service going into the future. The biggest increase that we had this year for 2017 in our budget actually was debt service. You know, so no, we've held the line on that, and I don't foresee right now, anything, any project, any type of construction, any purchase that would involve borrowing at this time. In fact, the Public Utilities is negotiating with XL Energy to pick up the XL site just south of the post office, because XL is moving over across 35. They purchased that property. That's been annexed by the city. Okay. And it had been, it was part of the discussion to perhaps bond to pick up that property. I think we're going to pay about $800,000 for it. And we said, utility right now is sitting on a surplus. And we said, you're going to need to use that surplus, or we're not going to bond for that property.
Okay. You did mention the word library, and library's been an issue in the past. It moved from this building where we are now to its current location, and then there was issues with its opening hours and so forth, and
right.
makeup of the board. Anything going on there with the library?
I think things have calmed down significantly over there.
Because you were on the library board.
I still am.
Okay.
In fact, I'm still the city-appointed person on the library board. So things have calmed down. I think that we are on a great track. We've got Tina Norris is just a tremendous asset. We just hired her a year ago, and she is from Minnesota, was in Tennessee when she applied for the job, and she came back home, and she's doing a great job there. She is a great face of the library. She is promoting our brand, and so we're doing well there. The city actually just budgeted for additional money for the library, a fairly hefty increase again this year that goes into our 3-year average, but it was something that the council's committed to, and we need to make sure that a library is one of the most vital things in a thriving community. And people always look at your health care, they look at your education, and a big function part of that education is your library facility and services. And so we're dedicated to maintaining that, making sure that we do well with it. So one of the big parts of that, though, that's I think relatively new, is the foundation weighing in. Where before the foundation, and they've kind of languished since we've been in that building, because their mission statement was that they would only raise money for capital improvements. Well, the building's owned by the city, and I mean, what are you going to do? So they sat idle for a while, and we had a chance to get to talk with them and talk about partnering with the Friends of the Library Board, and the foundation. And we've kind of merged a group where the foundation now has members from the library board and the Friends of, as well as the foundation itself. They've expanded their numbers dramatically, and they've been raising money now. This is the second year for an annual fundraising drive to raise money for programming for the library to take some of the burden of the cost. And this is going to be, I believe, just a great example here in Hudson of a good public-private partnership, and how the private side can work with the public side to make sure that we have a facility that is still state-of-the-art here for our community.
I think that's what the community wants, and it's good to hear. It sounds like maybe the sabers have been put back in their sheaths between the city and the county and so forth.
Well, I guess so. I mean, the county did take the 30% away from us in their budget, but you know what? And that's fine. We can't be operating with that threat hanging over our head every year. They're down to 70% of the flow-through, which is their statutory requirement, and they can't go lower than that. So,
Yeah, that's what I mean. The threats have been exposed, so to speak,
right.
And what can be done is done, and moving forward in a positive way. I think that's
absolutely
what everybody wants. So, one issue that has a lot of misconceptions associated with it, and that's the Syrian refugee. There was an announcement that St. Pat's Church is looking to assist in helping and assisting some Syrian refugees that have come over, and this is part of the different numbers have been put forth, 25,000, 75,000, but whatever the commitment was from the federal government, those have to go to local communities somewhere, and so they've looked at, it's 21 individuals and 7 families, is that correct?
That's the information that I have, yes.
All right, so But one of the misconceptions is that somehow this is something that the city influences when this is all being done through the church, really. And so why don't you clarify that?
Well, yeah, the city, we have absolutely no say in this whatsoever. And I don't even know that I would go as far as to say it's all being done through the church. It's not even necessarily the church's decision. The federal government, as you rightly stated, has said that so many refugees are coming into the country, and they have apportioned out how many to each state. And this group of refugees have identified Hudson as a place that they want to come because they supposedly have a friend or relative here. I don't know who that person is.
It's kind of one of the requirements in the program that they have some tie.
I think so, yeah.
First, I mean, that's like first choice type of thing
Right.
before they send them to a place where they have absolutely no ties.
Right.
Okay.
So, and there are, I believe it's 9 organizations that are under contract with the resettlement program in the State Department. And one of those organizations is the Conference of Catholic Bishops / Catholic Charities. And they were contacted for these particular people, this group of 21. And so this is called their remote program. They can't cross state lines for this program, so they can't rely on Catholic Charities in the Twin Cities to help them out. So they have to look at somebody in Wisconsin that's nearby, and it has to be within 100 miles of where that particular organization is headquartered in that state.
Okay.
We don't have anything within 100 miles. So then they turn to what they call their remote program, and so the bishops then, Conference of Bishops, contacted our local parish as part of that remote outreach and asked
So it's
Father
not
John.
directly through the church per se, but it's this
No.
organization.
And so what happens is that the bishops have asked if Father John and St. Pat's would be willing to help with the resettlement. The decision, if Father John were to say no, it doesn't mean that they're not coming here. They're still coming here. It just means that what he's saying is he doesn't believe that the church has the resources in which to be able to help these people. But then the bishops, through their contract with the State Department, would turn to somebody else here in Hudson, and it might be another faith community, another organization that might be better equipped to help with the resettlement. The big issues for the resettlement here are jobs, housing, language, transportation.
Right.
And so whomever it is that's going to be working with the bishops has got to help with those areas. If they find that they can't help with those areas, then that's a whole different ballgame. But the bottom line is this: the city has no say in this whatsoever. It's unfortunate, maybe, that the citizenry doesn't have input, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of spinning of wheels where, people are going to be trying to do this and that, and the bottom line is there's nothing we can do.
Okay. Well, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you felt is a moving item here in your first year as mayor?
I think we covered a lot of ground.
Okay.
I can't think of anything, Jamie.
All right. Well, we will. And is this a 2-year term or 4-year term?
It's a 2-year term.
2-year term. All right. But the budgets are still annual, not biannual. It's not a 2-year.
Annual budgeting. That's right.
Right. So very good. And if people have questions for Mayor, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call my office downtown. They can email me. I should know this email address, but I don't. It's mayor at
I didn't bring that part, but
mayor at ci.hudson.wi.us, I think is how it goes.
yes. All right. Very good. And if nothing else, they can Google City of Hudson Mayor.
That's exactly right. It'd be
Hudson,
on,
Wisconsin.
yeah, it's online. Go to the library and Google it.
There you go. That's right. Use our resources, right?
Yep.
Very good. Well, with that, I want to thank you for being on the show. We'll look forward to having you back again. I imagine that these projects are always changing, and what we're talking about now might be changed somewhat, but I think you got us moving in the right direction, so
I appreciate that. I do want to say Merry Christmas to you and Merry Christmas to everybody in Hudson, and
Same
look
to
for
you.
that Christmas present.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you.
And to those watching, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you for watching Western Wisconsin Journal.